and welcome to Ramblings of a 42-Year-Old Man. Chris Smith here with you today, and we are going to do just a quick ramble about a couple of movies I caught over the weekend. Both of these are VOD now, I believe. There was a theatrical run for at least one of them earlier in the year, but very limited. So we'll talk about both of these movies, starting with Kids versus Aliens, and then we're going to transition to a movie called Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, which will be a little bit fun to talk about. So stay tuned as we talk about those two movies. We'll start off with Kids vs. Aliens, a 2023 release that was directed by Jason Eisner. Jason Eisner, this is his sophomore directorial movie, and his first one was Hobo with the Shotgun, so that might tell you about some of the quality of the movie here. But I will say definitely low budget film. You'd think, the Kids versus Aliens, that it might be geared towards a younger audience. And I would say if you go in expecting maybe a very foul-mouthed Goonies, you're probably pretty close. I will say that there is at least one scene later in the movie that is very, very bloody. And it would probably be a little too much for younger kids. Maybe even younger teenagers it might be a little bit too much for. So the audience for this movie is really hard to pin down, because the majority of it is definitely a younger audience fare. The interactions between all the kids is very juvenile, and like I said, think Goonies. But then every other word is an F-bomb, and then you got a teenage character who's kind of like the possible romantic foil for your lead actress, and then he ends up being just a horrible, horrible human being doing just nasty, awful things, and you're kind of like, okay, this is definitely higher than the audience that I seem to be going for at first. Then the aliens show up, which is about halfway through the movie, really. For a movie called Kids vs. Aliens, it takes a long time for all that to get going. There's a lot of time spent with the kids and with the drama of the teenage girl and this jerk-off boy that she's trying to get with. And so, yeah, it takes a while to really get going. And like I said, the aesthetic for the first half of the movie definitely is just very, very foul-mouthed Goonies, I think Super 8 also kind of had the same interactions. These kids all want to make videos and stuff like that, so it kind of gives you that Super 8 vibe as well. But again, the language barrier definitely kicks it up in the R rating. Speaking as a middle school aged, as a parent of a middle school aged kid, I know the kids talk like this a lot nowadays, unfortunately. I remember being very much the same way when I was young, too. Doesn't mean I want to show my kid a movie where there's 30 F-bombs in the first 15 minutes, but that's what it is. Then the aliens start, and it tries to go a little darker. The kids are still just, again, juvenile humor and funkiness, but then the blood starts pouring, and it's very, very much more than you would necessarily think for the target audience that I kind of looked at the beginning. And so, again, hard to pin down who this movie's for. I will say, though, there's the lead actress. Her name is Phoebe Rex. I thought she was actually really impressive, and I hope that she'll be in other stuff and get to shine a little bit, because she seems like she's got some skill that she hopefully can get uncovered in some other movies. Otherwise, this movie, I mean, you take it or leave it. I would definitely probably be a leave it. It was definitely just hard to really pin down who would be the audience for watching it, and I wasn't, unfortunately. That being said, some decent acting from like I said, the main actress, and some of the kids pretty good too. Just again, that be expecting a lot of juvenile, lower middle school age kind of humor, and that's what you're getting with this one. So that's Kids vs. Aliens, and we'll move on to our next film. All right, so our next film is decidedly not for a younger audience, and it's funny because the name of it, you might think it was. So this is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. And so, kind of the story behind this, not the Disney Winnie the Pooh, but the character of Winnie the Pooh, the author, I think it was A.A. Milne or something like that. His characters have now come into public domain, and so now an aspiring horror filmmaker decided that he was going to make a horror movie using the characters from Winnie the Pooh. And it starts off a little bit like that. The story here is Christopher Robin, as he was growing up. He kind of moved off to college and left all of the friends from the 100 Acre Woods behind. Pooh, Piglet, Owl, Eeyore, Rabbit, all of them got left behind. Eventually they were starving, and so they cannibalized one of them, poor Eeyore. And then they end up going feral. And so the rest of the movie involves Christopher Robin trying to come back after school. He's trying to introduce his wife to his old friends, and he realizes very quickly that his old friends have gone bug nuts, just crazy. And then from that point on, there's a group of other girls that show up at a cabin in the woods, and they have absolutely nothing to do with any of the plot of Christopher Robin. They are literally just there to be fodder for Winnie the Pooh and Piglet. So you really only get to see the two characters. I don't know what happened to Owl, what happened to Rabbit. We know what happened to Eeyore, unfortunately. No talk about Kinga or Roo or Tig or any of them. So to me, it feels like this was a premise that could have been interesting, like a horror Winnie the Pooh, where Winnie the Pooh was a slasher, could be interesting. But they never do anything with it, other than Christopher the kind of the beginning where Christopher Robin leaves and they become these horrible versions of themselves, and then he comes back and sees all the craziness that's happened. That's it. That is the only expansion on this theme of this story, this Winnie the Pooh-ness of it. Other than that, it could be any other slasher movie of people in the woods just getting killed off for no reason. And so, yeah, there's definitely a missed opportunity here. It would have been, I think there's a lot better ways they could have gone with it, or further ways it could go. I mean, I don't want to necessarily say I want a sequel to this, because I did not think this one was very good, but you would hope maybe with more opportunities, they would be able to open up some more of the story and kind of wrap it in more with the Winnie the Pooh characters and stuff, and make it a little more than just your standard slasher who happens to have a mask that looks like Winnie the Pooh, which is what it looks like as a guy in a mask, unfortunately. But yeah, very, like I said, definitely not a target audience for younger people. It was very bloody, and I will say the practical effects were good. I just got finished talking about Renfield the other day, and it was all CG blood everywhere. No, this is definitely practical blood. It's gory, and it's 3 or 4 scenes of gory kills. Other than that, honestly, it's a little slow, a little boring. Things could definitely be a little quicker paced. The acting, I really can't say much about acting. I think low budget movie, they brought in a bunch of just young hungry actors, but there's nobody that stands out, kind of like that Phoebe Rex actress did for Kids and Aliens. Nobody really stands out on this one. The Christopher Robin, he probably has the most emotion in his performance. Otherwise, all the girls are really just in and out of the story to be killed, pretty much, unfortunately. Hate to see it that way. This is the kind of movies that make slashers kind of have a bad name, where it's like, oh, it's just a whole bunch of people showing up to get killed. Well, yeah, some movies are like that. This one happens to be one, unfortunately. So again, like I said, I'm not necessarily jonesing for a sequel, but if there were one, I would hope that they would go into more of the Winnie the Pooh, Christopher Robin's story, and actually use these characters in a compelling way. So we'll see if that happens. But so unfortunately, both Kids vs. Aliens and this one, I would probably not recommend to most people. The gore effects and just kind of the interest of seeing how Winnie the Pooh horror might look, like the first 15 minutes or so of this have some pretty cool ideas. It just never goes anywhere. So you might want to check that out. Kids vs. Aliens, I have a hard time thinking who could check that out. It's too young for most adults, and it's too old for most kids. So I really don't know. But that's our ramblings for today. We will catch you guys again later. Thank you for listening and watching, and see you soon. Bye.